Hey guys, it's spring break and I finally got a break. Welcome back to the land of books and movies. Today, you're in for a treat. It's The Monkey. Where did I set? There's my book. That's what I was talking about this time. This monkey. Excuse all the clutter around me. I'm such a pack rat. Anyway, this is basically just a relative, comparatively forgettable Stephen King short story from Skeleton Crew brought to life. You watched a film last year, and I'm not even going to ease into it. It went from 32 pages about a father and a son needing to contain a cursed monkey to an hour and a half of campy gore, craziness, and I love it. The book starts with Hal and Bill going through their childhood home after their Aunt Ida passed. Yes, this Aunt Ida, who is a lot more maternal in the book, a lot more colorful in the movie, and whose passing in the book is a lot less crazy. In the book, Hal and Bill both have wives, careers, and children. Hal is a software engineer and Bill is a lawyer. Their kids, bust each other's chops like kids do, just like Hal and Bill do as kids. And there is some passing mention of Uncle Bill in the book, who is Uncle Chip in the movie, who goes out looking like a drop kicked cherry pie. Anyway, the toy monkey's found in the attic, and it takes Hal down memory lane. How every time it was activated, someone died, but not comically insane like in the movie. The first one down is the babysitter, just like in the movie, but not like in the movie. She's just shot dead by an ornery boyfriend, and it's in the news. She's not, oops, decapitated in front of an entire restaurant full of hibachi customers. The next is their mother, who we don't get to know in the book, except she's a secretary at a helicopter plant, and her death is the same from book to movie, a very sudden aneurysm. The movie mom is very likable and relatable and likes to forget problems with dance. The movie and the book, while on memory lane, cover Hal and Bill's move to Casco, Maine with their aunt and uncle, who in the book are picture perfect stand in parents, who in the movie are swingers with a highly polarized fashion sense. That's another thing I noticed about the movie. Memory Lane is 1999. I'm about to show my age here. And the way they reimagine the 90s puzzles me a little. I did wear my hair like Aunt Ida did in this scene. I did. When I was 19 years old, part my hair in a zigzag pattern and use a lot of bobby pins and small claw clips to achieve that wild and zany runway look. Anyway, the only other deaths mentioned in the book were of the two classmates in a car accident, and this is remembered by Hal and his son Petey while they're taking the monkey out in Uncle Will's fishing boat, with the game plan to contain the monkey's evil power by sinking it to the bottom of the lake in a suitcase weighed down with the biggest rocks they could pick up. As they make it to the deepest point of Crystal Lake, they sink the monkey, and then the boat starts to come apart. And they make it back to the shore as it falls apart completely and sinks. The story ends with a news clipping about hundreds of fish in Crystal Lake found dead. And now for the fun part, and what's in this wild ride of movie only. There's just not 1 minute of normalcy. It's all unhinged lunacy, and it's crazy and campy and gory and slapstick, full of the weirdest people, and I love it so much. There's not one clean and painless death. There is not one vanilla person. We meet Hal and Will's father first, trying to pawn the cursed monkey, but it disembowels the shopkeep. So it gets a flamethrower turned on it, but that's not the end of the monkey. We cut to Hal and Bill as kids. They are twins, Hal being the smaller one. The reason given, and this seems just completely out of left field. Reason given is that Bill gluttonized all the placenta in utero. And so Hal is the good twin. Bill is a douchebag and constantly bullying Hal, often with the help of a bunch of girls. They are curious about their absentee father, who was an airline pilot and just left a big mystery for them. They find the monkey, and the lunacy ramps up to astronomical levels. First, the babysitter gets her head lopped off by the overzealous hibachi chef. Then their mom has an aneurysm. And the trip down memory lane ends with Uncle Chip and Aunt Ida taking them to live with them in Casco, Maine, just like in the book, with layers of weirdness cut in. The pastor covering the funerals is young and awkward. Uncle Chip and Aunt Ida are swingers. And it's just weird shit on top of campy gore. It's like the best kind of layer cake, where every layer is bleeping hilarious. Then we cut to Hal as a grown man, and he has 1 week a year with his son from an old girlfriend. And it's their last week of visitation before Pete's stepdad is legally adopting him. So Hal wants to make it special while Pete is grilling him for information for a family tree school project. So, how he learns about his crazy Uncle Bill is more layers of crazy. Then Hal gets a phone call from Bill, and it's obvious that the monkey is back. Aunt Ida did her best impression of Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast before fumbling and stumbling face first onto a for sale sign. After Hal learns of Aunt Ida's freak accident, he sees a pretty girl coming out to the hotel pool for a midnight swim. And just as she does a perfect dive, she explodes on contact in a splash of blood and flying limbs because a fallen air conditioner electrified the water. The next day, Hal takes Petey to his childhood home to meet the realtor and go over personal effects left behind. And the realtor named Barbara goes over a laundry list of everyone who died recently in freak accidents, such as runaway lawnmowers, trippy espresso machines, and misplaced venomous snakes. And her attitude about it is very cavalier, flippant even, calling it God bowling strikes, until she opens a closet and a shotgun falls forward and the buckshot splats her all over the room. Then we cut to a monologue by crazy grown up Bill, whose haircut is really funny looking, and he still wears his childhood funeral suit, even though it's tiny on him. And he talks about his obsession with finding the monkey and using it to kill Hal. And he is so crazy. He sees messages from the monkey in fortune cookies. He even sees the monkey's face on a sexy stripper. Bill is crazy. That's been established. And he has a deal for Hal. Give Petey the monkey and have him turn the key. Or he'll keep it and keep turning the key, and maybe Petey will be killed horrifically, or maybe not, since the person turning the key seems to have immunity. At the same time, the town loser pothead that Bill hired to find the monkey at the estate sale wants to take it back because he's a man child, and his attempt to impersonate a police officer works for 1 second, and then his idiocy works against him. He misfires the gun he's scratching his head with, and it shoots a hole through through the windshield of Hal's car and hits a huge hornet's nest. And in a matter of seconds, this ne'er-do-well is consumed alive by hornets. Hal and Petey get to Bill and they fight over the monkey, and they cause it to short out. It pounds the drum spastically, and then you just hear absolute pandemonium outside. They peek outside the window and fires everywhere, planes crashing. There's even a pair of skydiving newlyweds crashing through the ceiling. And all of this sobers Bill. He has his come to Jesus moment and finally makes peace with Hal, but it's too late. The left arm of the monkey comes down, and a Goldberg chain of events causes a bowling ball to be fired out of a cannon and decapitate Bill. Now that's the story, just about over, but the lunacy isn't. Hal and Petey are leaving Casco and seeing the strangest death and destruction all around them. They stop at a red light, and completely also out of left field, they encounter none other than the Pale Rider himself, who looks exhausted and puzzled and frustrated, gives them a knowing look, and then moves on. The light turns green, and Hal suggests that he and Petey go dancing to forget their troubles. And just as we see them drive away, a bus full of cheerleaders approaches the intersection, and a utility truck passing them too closely in the oncoming lane decapitates the ones leaning out the windows. That's the monkey, everyone. Delightful, crazy treat of absolute insanity, nonsense, and ridiculousness. And again, I love it. Thank you for joining me again. Please consider subscribing if you don't already. And see you next book and movie.